Marcus Vance had never met his great-uncle Elias, and he had never expected to hear from him either. So when the knock came at his small apartment door on a cold Tuesday morning, he thought it was just another bill collector or maybe a neighbor asking to borrow something. He opened the door and found a tall alien standing there, dressed in the formal gray uniform of the Galactic Probate Office, holding a datapad in one hand and a small metal box in the other. "Marcus Vance?" the alien asked in a voice that sounded like gravel rolling down a pipe. "That would be me," Marcus said, leaning against the door frame and crossing his arms. "What can I do for you?" "I am here regarding the estate of Elias Vance, your great-uncle, who passed away 3 standard weeks ago on the station known as Farpoint 7. Marcus blinked in surprise because he had heard stories about Elias when he was a child, but the family never spoke of him with any warmth or affection, and most of them called him the Wanderer or the fool who left everything behind. "I did not even know he was still alive," Marcus admitted. "We never had any contact with him. Nevertheless," the alien continued, "you are listed as his sole beneficiary, and according to galactic inheritance law, you are entitled to his remaining possessions." The alien handed Marcus the datapad, which showed a simple list: 1 ship, 1 service droid, and whatever cargo remained in the hold. "That is it?" Marcus asked. "That is everything," the alien confirmed, then handed him the small metal box. "This contains the docking key and the coordinates for Bay 7C at the orbital station above this world. And I wish you good fortune with your inheritance." Before Marcus could ask any more questions, the alien turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the doorway with a box he never expected and a legacy he knew nothing about. Marcus worked as a salvage mechanic on the colony world of New Meridian, which meant he spent his days pulling apart old ships and selling the parts to anyone who needed them. And he was good at his job because he had learned to see value in things that others considered worthless. So when he took a shuttle up to the orbital station and walked into Bay 7C, he was not entirely surprised by what he found. The ship was old, a Stellaron-class freighter that had stopped being made at least 40 years ago, and it looked like it had spent every one of those years getting beaten up by the universe. Its self-carbon scoring covered the hull in black streaks, and tiny holes from micro-asteroid impacts dotted the surface like old scars. And the paint had faded so much that Marcus could barely tell what color it had once been. Most people would have looked at this ship and seen nothing but junk waiting to be scrapped. But Marcus walked around it slowly, running his hand along the metal, and he saw something different. He saw potential. He saw a ship that had survived decades of travel through the harshest parts of space. And that kind of endurance meant something. He climbed up the boarding ramp, which groaned under his weight but held firm, and he stepped into the interior of the ship for the first time. The air inside was stale and cold, and dust covered every surface like a gray blanket, and the lights flickered when he hit the power switch near the entrance. Marcus walked through the corridors slowly, taking in the sight of old cargo containers, worn-out seats, and control panels that looked like they had not been touched in years. And then he found the droid. It stood in a small alcove near the engine room, motionless and covered in the same dust that coated everything else. And Marcus almost walked right past it before he noticed the faint glow coming from somewhere deep inside its chassis. The droid was a service model, built for maintenance and assistance, with a humanoid shape and 2 photoreceptors that served as eyes. And its metal body was dented and scratched in 100 different places. Marcus found the power switch on the back of its neck and pressed it. For a moment, nothing happened. And then a soft hum began to build inside the machine, and the photoreceptors flickered to life with a pale blue light. The droid turned its head slowly, looking at Marcus with what seemed like confusion. "You are not Elias," it said in a voice full of static and electronic noise. "No," Marcus replied. "He passed away, and I am his family. So I guess that makes you mine now." The droid studied him for a long moment, longer than Marcus thought a simple service machine should need. And then it spoke again. "My designation is Unit K8, but Elias called me Kate. And I served him for many years." "Kate," Marcus repeated, testing the name. "That is a nice name for a droid. Thank you," Kate said. And something in her voice sounded almost like warmth. "If you are now my owner, then I will serve you as I served Elias. And I will help you with whatever you need." Marcus looked around at the old ship, at the dust and the damage and the years of neglect. And he made a decision right there in that moment. "Well, Kate," he said, "I think the first thing we need to do is fix this ship up, because if my great-uncle left it to me, then I want to know why he thought it was worth keeping all these years." Kate nodded slowly, her servos whirring with the motion. "That is a wise choice," she said. "This ship has many secrets, and I believe you will find them interesting." Marcus did not know what she meant by that, but he felt a strange excitement building in his chest. The kind of feeling he got when he found something valuable hidden in a pile of junk. He had come here expecting nothing, but now he had a ship and a droid, and a mystery that his great-uncle had left behind. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus Vance felt like his life was about to change in ways he could not even imagine. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work, because that was what humans did when faced with a challenge, and Kate stood beside him, ready to help, carrying secrets that Marcus would not discover until much later. The inheritance had begun, and with it, a journey that would take Marcus Vance further than he had ever dreamed of going. 3 weeks passed, and Marcus spent every day working on the ship that he had decided to rename the Second Chance, because that was exactly what it felt like to him. He replaced broken panels and rewired faulty circuits and cleaned out years of grime and neglect. And slowly the old freighter began to look like something worth flying again. Kate helped him with everything, handing him tools before he even asked for them and pointing out problems that he might have missed. And Marcus found himself impressed by how capable she was for such an old machine. But there was something strange about Kate, something that Marcus could not quite put into words. She was too smart, too aware, too careful in the way she watched him and answered his questions. One evening, Marcus sat in the cockpit with grease on his hands and sweat on his forehead, staring at the navigation computer that he had just finished repairing. "Kate," he said, "where did Elias go in this ship?" Kate stood behind him, her photoreceptors glowing softly in the dim light. "Many places," she answered. "He traveled across the galaxy for most of his life. But where exactly?" Marcus pressed. "I tried to look at the ship logs, but they are all corrupted, and I cannot find any records of where he went or what he was doing." Kate paused for a moment before answering, and that pause felt heavy with meaning. "Elias was a private man," she said. "He did not like to leave records behind." "That does not answer my question." "I know," Kate said, "but it is the only answer I can give you right now." Marcus frowned and turned back to the computer, but he could not shake the feeling that Kate was hiding something from him. Over the next few days, he started paying closer attention to the ship itself. And the more he looked, the more strange things he found. There were power conduits hidden behind the walls that did not connect to anything he could identify, and the radiation shielding was far stronger than any civilian freighter would ever need. And some of the cargo holds had false bottoms that opened into empty spaces with no clear purpose. Marcus also found gaps in Kate's maintenance logs, long stretches of time where her memory seemed to have been deliberately erased, leaving blank spaces in a record that should have been complete. "What happened to your logs?" he asked her one night while they worked together in the engine room. Kate's photoreceptors flickered, and for a moment she did not respond. "I do not know," she finally said. "There are parts of my memory that I cannot access, and I do not understand why." Marcus studied her carefully, looking for any sign that she was lying, but her face was metal and her eyes were lights. and he could not read her the way he could read a human. "Did Elias do this to you?" "I believe so," Kate admitted, "but I do not know his reasons." That night, Marcus could not sleep, so he wandered through the ship with a flashlight. Looking for answers in the shadows, he found himself in the cargo hold, staring at a wall that looked just like all the other walls, and he did not know why he felt drawn to this particular spot. He ran his hands along the metal surface, pressing and pushing until his fingers found a seam that should not have been. There, a hidden panel. Marcus pried it open with a screwdriver, and behind it, he found a small lockbox with a biometric scanner on the front. His heart beat faster as he reached out to touch it, and the moment his fingers made contact, he heard Kate's voice behind him. "Marcus, you should not." But it was too late. The scanner read his DNA, recognized him as family, and the box clicked open with a soft hiss inside. Marcus found two things: a small data chip and a piece of paper with handwriting on it. The paper was old and yellow at the edges, and the handwriting was messy and hard to read. But Marcus recognized it as the same script he had seen on other documents in the ship. It was a note from Elias. "When you find someone worth trusting," the note said, "Kate will know, because she carries more than memory." Marcus read the words twice, then 3 times, trying to understand what they meant. He turned to look at Kate, who stood in the doorway with her photoreceptors dim and her metal hands clasped together. "What does this mean?" he asked, holding up the note. Kate did not answer right away. Instead, she walked toward him slowly, her footsteps heavy on the metal floor. And when she stopped in front of him, Marcus could hear the soft whir of machinery inside her chest. "It means," she said quietly, "that Elias trusted you, even though he never met you. And it means that there is something I need to show you." "What is it?" Kate looked down at her own hands, then back up at Marcus. "I have carried a secret for 57 years, she said. "A secret that Elias gave his life to protect, and now that secret belongs to you." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine, because the way Kate spoke made him realize that this was not just some old family mystery. This was something bigger, something important, something that had shaped his great-uncle's entire life. "Show me," he said. Kate nodded slowly. "Tomorrow," she said, "when you are rested and ready, because what I am about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about the universe." Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers right now, but something in Kate's voice made him stop. She was not being dramatic or secretive for no reason. She was being careful, the way someone is careful when they are about to hand over something precious. So Marcus nodded and put the data chip in his pocket and walked back to his small cabin, where he lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally came. And in his dreams, he saw stars he had never visited and worlds he had never known. And he heard a voice calling to him from somewhere far away, telling him that his journey was only beginning. The ghosts in the hull were waking up, and soon Marcus would learn why. His great-uncle had spent a lifetime running from something that no one else even knew existed. The next morning, Marcus woke up early and found Kate waiting for him in the cockpit, standing perfectly still like a statue made of metal and wire. He had not slept well, and his mind was full of questions that had no answers. And he wanted to know the truth more than he had ever wanted anything in his life. "I am ready," he said. Kate turned to face him, and her photoreceptors seemed brighter than usual, as if something inside her had come alive during the night. "Before I show you," she said, "I need you to understand something important." "What is that?" "What I carry is not just a secret," Kate explained. "It is a responsibility. And once you know about it, you cannot unknow it. And your life will never be the same." Marcus thought about that for a moment, then nodded. "I understand," he said. "Show me anyway." Kate reached behind her own chassis with one metal hand, and Marcus heard a click as she pressed something hidden beneath her shoulder plate. Then her chest began to open. Marcus watched in amazement as panels slid apart and layers of metal peeled back. revealing the inside of Kate's body in a way he had never seen before. And there, in the center of her chest, held in place by a soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, was something beautiful. It was a sphere about the size of a human heart, made of some kind of crystal, but Marcus did not recognize. The crystal glowed with colors that shifted and changed, moving from blue to green to gold and back again, and inside it, Marcus could see tiny lights moving around like stars in a miniature galaxy. "What is that?" he whispered. Kate looked down at the sphere with something that might have been love in her mechanical eyes. "Elias called it the seed," she said, "and it is the last of its kind in the entire universe." Marcus stepped closer, drawn to the light like a moth to a flame, and he could feel warmth coming from the sphere even though he was not touching it. "The last of its kind?" he repeated. "What does that mean?" Kate closed her chest panels carefully, hiding the seed from view once again, and then she began to tell Marcus a story that he would never forget. "Have you heard of the Valkyrie?" she asked. Marcus frowned, trying to remember. "The ancient race?" he said. "The ones who were supposed to have seeded life across the galaxy before they disappeared." "Yes," Kate confirmed. "Most people think they're just a legend, a myth, a story that scientists tell to explain why so many worlds have similar life forms. But they are real?" "They were real," Kate said, "and the seed is proof of that." She explained that the Valkyrie were an ancient species who had existed for millions of years, traveling across the galaxy and spreading life wherever they went. They had created the building blocks of countless species, including the ancestors of humans, and when their time came to an end, they left behind a single gift, the seed. It contains the genetic information of the Valkyrie themselves, Kate said. Everything they were, everything they knew, everything they hoped to become, all of it is stored inside that crystal. "That is incredible," Marcus breathed. "But why is it hidden inside you?" Kate's voice grew softer, almost sad. 63 years ago, she said, your great-uncle Elias was a young freighter pilot, barely older than you are now, and he was exploring an uncharted region of space when he found something unexpected. What did he find? A dying Valkyrie elder, Kate said. The last of their kind, alone on a dead moon, waiting for someone worthy to carry on their legacy. Marcus listened in stunned silence as Kate described the meeting between his great-uncle and the ancient alien. The elder had searched the galaxy for thousands of years, looking for a species that could be trusted to protect the seed until it was ready to bloom. And in all that time, it had found only greed and violence and cruelty. But then it found Elias, a simple human pilot who had stopped to investigate a distress signal that everyone else had ignored. The elder saw something in your great-uncle, Kate said. Something that made it believe that humans were different from all the other species it had encountered. What did it see? Kate paused, as if searching for the right words. Compassion, she finally said. The elder told Elias that humans were young and foolish and sometimes cruel, but they had a capacity for love and sacrifice that was rare in the universe. The elder gave Elias the seed and made him promise to protect it, to keep it hidden until the right time came for it to be planted, and Elias had kept that promise for the rest of his life. He modified me to carry the seed, Kate explained, because ships can be searched and cargo can be stolen, but nobody looks twice at an old service droid. Marcus understood now why his great-uncle had been called the Wanderer, why he had spent his life moving from place to place and never settling down. He had been running, not from something, but for something. Why does it need to be protected? Marcus asked. Who would want to take it? Kate's photoreceptors flickered with what looked like fear. 3 galactic powers know that the seed exists, she said. The Dominion wants to study it and turn it into a weapon. The Collective wants to dissect it and learn its secrets. And the Syndicate wants to sell it to the highest bidder. And Elias kept it hidden from all of them for 60 years? 57 years, Kate corrected. And yes, he did. At great cost to himself, Marcus looked at Kate with new eyes, seeing her not as a simple droid, but as a guardian who had carried an impossible burden for longer than he had been alive. Why did he leave it to me? He asked. Kate reached out and placed her metal hand on Marcus's shoulder. Because the seed is almost ready, she said. It is entering its final stage, and soon it will need to be planted on a world where it can grow. And you think I can find that world? Kate shook her head slowly. Elias already found it, she said. The coordinates are on the data chip you found last night. A Dardan world hidden in an uncharted nebula. Perfect for the seed to bloom. Marcus felt the weight of the chip in his pocket, suddenly aware that he was holding the key to something that could change the entire galaxy. Why me? He asked again. Why did Elias think I was worthy of this? Kate's voice was gentle when she answered. Because you are human, she said. And because humans are the only species stubborn enough, compassionate enough, and foolish enough to protect something precious simply because it needs protecting. Marcus looked at the old droid, at the ship that his great-uncle had flown for decades, and at the stars waiting outside the viewport. He did not know if he was ready for this responsibility, but he knew that he could not walk away from it. All right, he said. Tell me what I need to do. Kate's photoreceptors brightened, and for the first time since Marcus had met her, she looked almost happy. First, she said, we need to run, because the Syndicate has been searching for this ship for years, and I believe they are getting close. As if her words had summoned them, the ship's sensors began to beep with an urgent warning someone was coming, and Marcus knew that his peaceful days of repair work were over. The secret was out, and the hunt was about to begin. Marcus threw himself into the pilot's seat and grabbed the controls, his heart pounding in his chest as the warning alarm screamed throughout the ship. How many? He demanded. Kate plugged herself into the sensor console, her fingers moving faster than any human could manage. One vessel, she reported. Syndicate interceptor, heavily armed, dropping out of hyperspace in approximately 90 seconds. Marcus cursed under his breath and began powering up the engines, listening to the old machinery groan and shudder as it came to life. The second chance was not a warship, and it was not fast, but it was all he had. Can we outrun them? He asked. Unknown? Kate admitted. This ship has modifications that I believe Elias installed for exactly this situation, but I do not know their full capabilities. Then I guess we are about to find out. The hyperspace window opened in front of them, a swirling tear in the fabric of space, and a sleek black ship emerged from the light like a predator emerging from the shadows. It was beautiful in a deadly way. All sharp angles and hidden weapons, and Marcus knew immediately that he was outmatched. The comm system crackled, and a voice came through the speakers, smooth and confident and completely without mercy. Human vessel, the voice said. You are carrying stolen Syndicate property, and you will surrender the artifact and the droid immediately, or you will be destroyed. Marcus did not bother to respond. Instead, he pushed the throttle forward and sent the second chance screaming away from the station, heading for the asteroid field that ringed the outer edge of the system. They are pursuing, Kate reported. Closing fast. I know, Marcus said through gritted teeth. I need options. Kate's processors hummed as she searched through the ship's systems. There are hidden thrusters built into the hull, she said. Elias installed them years ago, and they should give us a significant speed boost. Activate them. Kate pressed a sequence of buttons, and suddenly the ship lurched forward with a burst of acceleration that pressed Marcus back into his seat. The second chance shot through space like an arrow, faster than any standard freighter should be able to move. And for a moment, Marcus thought they might actually escape, but the Syndicate interceptor was faster still. They are still gaining, Kate said. We cannot outrun them in a straight line. Then we will not go in a straight line. Marcus aimed the ship directly at the asteroid field. A chaotic mess of tumbling rocks and spinning debris that would be suicide for most pilots to enter. He had spent years working as a salvage mechanic, flying through dangerous areas to recover valuable wreckage. And he knew how to navigate spaces that would make other pilots turn back in fear. The second chance plunged into the asteroids, and Marcus began weaving between the massive rocks with movements that were part skill and part instinct. Behind them, the Syndicate ship followed, its pilot clearly unwilling to give up the chase. Warning shots, Kate said as the first laser blast streaked past the cockpit. They want us alive. Good, Marcus said. That means they will hesitate to shoot the engines. He pushed the ship harder, threading through gaps that seemed too narrow and diving under rocks that seemed too big. And slowly he began to put distance between them and their pursuers. But the Syndicate pilot was skilled, and the interceptor was fast, and Marcus knew he could not keep this up forever. We need to jump to hyperspace, he said. Can we calculate a route while moving? I am trying, Kate replied, but the asteroid field is interfering with the navigation systems. Another blast hit their rear shields, and the ship shuddered with the impact. They are getting frustrated, Marcus observed. Indeed, Kate agreed. I estimate they will switch to more aggressive tactics within the next 2 minutes. Marcus scanned the space ahead and spotted something that gave him an idea. A massive asteroid with a deep crater on one side, big enough to hide a ship. Hold on. He said he cut the engines and let the second chance drift, then used the maneuvering thrusters to spin the ship around and slip into the crater just as the Syndicate interceptor came roaring past. For a long moment there was silence. The Syndicate ship flew on, searching the asteroid field for a target that had seemingly vanished. And Marcus held his breath as he watched them on the sensors, navigation route calculated. Kate whispered, "On my mark." Marcus whispered back. He waited until the Syndicate ship had moved to the far side of a particularly large asteroid, then fired the engines at full power and shot out of the crater. Heading for open space, the hyperspace window opened in front of them, beautiful and welcoming. And Marcus pushed the ship toward it with everything he had. But the Syndicate pilot had been waiting. A blast hit the port engine, and the second chance spun wildly, alarms screaming as systems failed throughout the ship. Engine 2 is offline. Kate shouted. Marcus fought with the controls, struggling to keep the ship from tearing itself apart. And he made a desperate decision. He aimed for a nearby moon, a barren rock with a thin atmosphere and no settlements, and he let gravity take them down. The descent was brutal. The ship bounced and shuddered as it hit the atmosphere, and flames licked at the viewport as they fell faster and faster toward the surface. Marcus pulled back on the controls with all his strength, fighting to slow their descent. And at the last moment, he managed to level out just enough to turn a crash into a very hard landing. The second chance hit the ground and skidded through the dust, carving a long furrow in the surface of the moon before finally coming to a stop in a narrow canyon. For a moment, Marcus just sat there, breathing hard and waiting for his heart to slow down. Status report, he finally said. Kate pulled herself up from where she had fallen and ran a quick diagnostic. Hull integrity compromised but stable, she said. Engine 2 destroyed. Engine 1 damaged but repairable. Weapons offline. Shields at 12%. And the seed? Kate checked her internal sensors and nodded. Safe, she said. It is protected. Marcus allowed himself a small moment of relief before reality came crashing back. They will land soon, he said. They saw where we went down. Yes, Kate agreed. I estimate 6 armed soldiers, based on the standard crew complement of a Syndicate interceptor. We cannot fight 6 soldiers. No, Kate said. We cannot. Marcus looked around the canyon. at the rocks and the dust and the thin atmosphere that would not support human life without a mask. And he began to think humans had not survived as a species by being the strongest or the fastest. They had survived by being clever, by adapting, by refusing to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. The emergency shuttle, Marcus said suddenly. Elias mentioned it in one of his logs. A hidden craft for exactly this kind of situation. Kate nodded. It is concealed beneath the cargo hold, she confirmed. Small enough to escape detection. Fast enough to reach the nearest station. Then, that is our way out. Marcus grabbed a breathing mask and a small bag of supplies. And he helped Kate to her feet. They moved through the damaged ship quickly, stepping over debris and ducking under collapsed panels, until they reached the cargo hold where the hidden shuttle waited. But they were not fast enough. The airlock opened behind them, and Marcus heard the sound of boots on metal as the Syndicate soldiers entered the ship. "Move," he hissed. They ran for the shuttle, and Marcus was just reaching for the hatch when a voice shouted behind them, "Stop right there!" Marcus turned and saw a Syndicate soldier standing at the end of the cargo hold, rifle raised and aimed directly at his chest for a moment. Nobody moved, and Kate stepped in front of Marcus, putting her metal body between him and the weapon. "Go," she said. "Protect the seed. I am not leaving you." The soldier fired, and the blast hit Kate in the shoulder, spinning her around and sending sparks flying from her damaged body. Marcus caught her before she could fall and dragged her into the shuttle, hitting the emergency launch button with his free hand. Shuttle blasted out of the cargo hold just as more soldiers came running, and Marcus flew them up into the thin atmosphere and away from the moon while laser blasts streaked past the viewport they had escaped. But barely Kate lay on the floor of the shuttle, her shoulders smoking and her photoreceptors flickering. "Are you all right?" Marcus asked. "I will survive," Kate said. "The damage is repairable." Marcus set the autopilot and knelt beside her, looking at the wound with worry in his eyes. "You saved my life," he said. Kate looked up at him, and despite her mechanical nature, there was something warm in her gaze. "That is what family does," she said. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right then," he said. "Let us go find that garden world and finish what Elias started." He entered the coordinates from the data chip into the navigation system, and the shuttle jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward a future that would change everything. The journey through hyperspace took 3 weeks, longer than Marcus had expected. But the coordinates that Elias had left behind led them far beyond the edges of known space, into a nebula that no star chart had ever recorded. Marcus spent the time repairing Kate as best he could with the limited supplies on the shuttle, and she spent the time telling him stories about his great-uncle. Stories that painted a picture of a man who had sacrificed everything for a cause that no one else even knew existed. He missed his family, Kate said one night as they drifted through the swirling colors of the nebula. He talked about them sometimes, about the life he might have had if things had been different. Why did he not reach out? Marcus asked. Why did he stay away for so long? Because he was protecting them, Kate explained. The Syndicate would have used anyone close to him as leverage, and Elias would have done anything to keep that from happening. Marcus thought about his own parents, about his friends back on New Meridian, and he understood for the first time the weight that his great-uncle had carried. Elias had given up everything so that others could be safe. And now Marcus was carrying on that legacy. When the shuttle finally emerged from the nebula, Marcus saw something that took his breath away. A planet hung in space before them, blue and green and beautiful, with white clouds swirling across its surface and vast oceans that sparkled in the light of a golden sun. It looked like Earth must have looked thousands of years ago, before humans had spread across it and changed it forever. The garden world, Kate said softly. Marcus guided the shuttle down through the atmosphere, marveling at the forests and mountains and rivers that stretched out beneath them. and he landed in a clearing beside a crystalline lake that was so clear he could see straight to the bottom. The air outside was fresh and clean, filled with the scent of flowers and growing things. And Marcus stood at the shuttle door for a long moment, just breathing it in. "This is perfect," he said. Kate walked up beside him, her repaired shoulders still showing the scars of the Syndicate blast, and she nodded. "Elias searched for decades to find a world like this," she said. "A place where the seed could grow without interference, where it could become what it was meant to become." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out the data chip, turning it over in his hands. "What happens when we plant it?" he asked. Kate hesitated before answering. "I do not know exactly," she admitted. The Valkyrie elder told Elias that the seed would bloom into something new, something that would carry their legacy forward into the future. But the exact form it would take was never revealed. "So we are doing this on faith?" "Yes," Kate said. "That is all we have ever had." Marcus thought about that for a moment, then smiled. "Good enough for me." They walked together through the clearing, past flowers that bloomed in colors Marcus had never seen and trees that seemed to hum with life, until they reached a spot near the edge of the lake where the soil was dark and rich. Kate opened her chest panel one more time, and the seed emerged, glowing brighter than ever before. Marcus took it carefully in his hands, and the warmth of it spread through his fingers and up his arms, filling him with a sense of peace that he had never experienced. "Are you sure about this?" Kate asked. Marcus looked at the seed, at the swirling lights inside it, and he thought about his great-uncle Elias, who had spent his entire life protecting this small piece of an ancient civilization. He thought about the Valkyrie elder, who had searched the galaxy for someone worthy to carry on their legacy, and he thought about humanity itself, a young species that was often foolish and sometimes cruel, but that also had the capacity for love and sacrifice and hope. "I am sure," he said. He knelt down and placed the seed gently on the soil, pressing it into the earth with both hands for a moment. Nothing happened. Then light exploded from the ground, soft and golden, spreading outward in waves that rippled across the clearing like rings on the surface of water. The seed cracked open, and from inside it emerged tendrils of pure energy, reaching down into the soil and up into the air and out into the water of the lake. Marcus stepped back, watching in wonder as something ancient and impossibly beautiful began to take shape. The energy spread across the entire clearing. Then beyond, racing through the forest and up the mountains and out across the oceans, touching every part of the planet with its light. And as it spread, things began to change. The flowers bloomed brighter, the trees grew taller, and the air itself seemed to hum with a new kind of life. Marcus could feel it in his bones, a sense of connection to something vast and old and full of love. "What is happening?" he whispered. Kate stood beside him, her photoreceptors glowing with the reflected light. "The Valkyrie are waking up," she said. "Not as they were, but as something new, something that will grow alongside this world and become part of it. They are coming back to life?" "In a way," Kate said. "Their physical forms are gone, but their essence remains, and now it has a place to grow and flourish." Marcus watched the light continue to spread, and he felt tears on his cheeks that he had not even realized were falling. This was what his great-uncle had spent his life protecting, not just a scientific discovery or a piece of ancient technology, but a second chance for an entire civilization. Why did the elder choose humanity? Marcus asked. Out of all the species in the galaxy, why us? Kate turned to look at him, and her voice was gentle when she answered. "Because humans are the only species that would do what you just did," she said. "Give up something of infinite value without asking for anything in return." "I did not give it up," Marcus said. "I planted it." "Exactly," Kate said. "The Dominion would have dissected it. The Collective would have studied it until it died. and the syndicate would have sold it to whoever paid the most. But you chose to let it grow. She placed her hand on his shoulder. The Valkyrie searched for thousands of years to find a species young enough to still have hope. Stubborn enough to never give up, and compassionate enough to protect something simply because it needed protecting. And they found us. They found humanity. Cade agreed. A species that crosses oceans and builds cities and reaches for the stars. Not because it is easy, but because it is right. Marcus looked out at the garden world, at the light that was still spreading across the landscape. And he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt proud of his great-uncle, who had sacrificed everything to carry this burden, proud of Kate, who had waited 57 years for this moment, and proud of humanity. A flawed and complicated species that somehow still managed to do the right thing when it mattered most. What do we do now? He asked Kate, looked at the planet around them and smiled. Or at least made the closest approximation that a droid could manage. Now we go home, she said. And we tell no one what we have done, because this world needs time to grow without interference. And the syndicate? They will keep searching, Kate admitted, but they will never find this place. Because Elias made sure that the coordinates would be destroyed after a single use. Marcus nodded, accepting that this secret would be his to keep for the rest of his life. But that was all right. Some things were worth protecting. Even when no one else would ever know, he took one last look at the garden world, at the legacy of the Valkyrie blooming across its surface. And then he turned back to the shuttle. "Come on, Kate," he said. "Let us go home." They flew back through the nebula and into known space. And Marcus returned to his life as a salvage mechanic, working on old ships and dreaming of the stars. But sometimes, late at night, he would look up at the sky and think about a garden world hidden beyond the edge of the galaxy, where something ancient and beautiful was growing, and he would smile, knowing that he had done his part to protect it. That was what humans did. After all, they protected the things that mattered, even when it cost them everything, even when no one would ever thank them, even when the only reward was knowing that they had made a difference, and somewhere in the universe, the Valkyrie's final gift continued to bloom, watched over by the memory of a man named Elias. Vance and the droid who had loved him. The inheritance was complete, but the story of humanity was only beginning.